Good morning to you all. Welcome to another morning, and to all the visitors of IndianTelevision.com on our Facebook pages, on our YouTube site, on our YouTube pages, and on every single outlet that we are live on. This is the fourth of the series of the virtual roundtables that we've been conducting, and we're really happy to have a fantastic panel this morning. Before we begin, I'd like a cautionary word. None of us is going to use the word unprecedented. It's been much abused. I've looked up the thesaurus, and I'm going to help you with some new words which we all know but seem to have forgotten when it comes to, other alternatives for unprecedented. There's unparalleled, unmatched, uncommon, unrivaled, extraordinary, unusual, exceptional, untypical, freakish, unique, atypical, out of the ordinary. So do we have it from the panelists that we will not use the word unprecedented? Will everyone agree not to use the word unprecedented?
Got it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it's a much abused word. Thank you very much. Anyway, welcome. We have a fabulous panel. We'll introduce them as we go along. But to begin this morning session, we have all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, where it's 1 o'clock at midnight, and he's just come out of a freakish storm. He didn't have power a few minutes ago, and we were afraid that he might not be able to patch up with us. But miraculously, hallelujah, everything worked out right. And we have a 20-something looking Jared Timmons, who heads solutions for TVU, the company that's roaring its way into TV broadcasters' newsrooms worldwide, as well as in their production hubs ever since the pandemic began. So the topic for today is basically we're trying to understand the challenges that we faced as far as production is concerned, both in the newsrooms as well as producing for drama, for different kinds of series. We've got fabulous ways of doing it, and Jared and I will get into a conversation, following which we'll talk to the rest of the panelists on, how has the entire scenario been in the US, Jared, and ever since the pandemic began? If you could share with us.
Well, I think I'd say it's been unprecedented.
Unrivaled, unmatched.
Totally kidding.
Yeah.
No, I think, the interesting thing for the dynamic in the US was that we were completely unprepared for what was going to come from this virus. And I think that it really pushed us to the point from a cloud technology perspective where I think there was this dynamic in the industry where traditional broadcast vendors felt like there was about an 18 to 24 month roadway or time frame that they were going to be able to really amateurize their old technology while working to move everything into the cloud. And it was almost like overnight when the lockdown happened, broadcasters had to completely rethink the way that they did everything. And so it really was a difficult scenario for a lot of people. But those of us that had moved into the cloud technology space, generated content space, were really able to kind of step up and start to help out the market. And, people, I think the ingenuity of people has been amazing to watch. But one of the biggest, I think, things that have changed for forever is you'll never see broadcasters put themselves in a position where they're facility dependent ever again.
Can you elaborate on that a little more, if you don't mind?
Well, I think the biggest realization was all of our workflows required on-premise equipment, on-premise operation, on-premise workflows to be able to accomplish that. And so when you look at how we've built all of these facilities, it was really a perfect storm in the sense of internet bandwidth wasn't affected, power wasn't affected, none of our infrastructure was affected. You had these perfectly pristine facilities that had been built to withstand all kinds of redundancies, except for the redundancy of no people were allowed in them, and no one could utilize that technology to move it to air, especially when everyone was locked at home. So I think what we have seen is we've seen people say we really need to get to the cloud as quickly as we possibly can so we can be non-localized in our approach to this pandemic. And then we've seen a lot of broadcasters, I think globally, come out and say that all of their money and all of their investments post-pandemic will be in ensuring that they are no longer coupled to a facility and that they can be able to continue their business continuity initiatives regardless of location.
Okay, so basically you had on-premise equipment you couldn't go and handle, you couldn't deal with that with all the millions you invested. So what was the solution that these broadcasters found to get their way around the restriction they had?
Well, I think that a lot of broadcasters went to, I would say, consumer level or commodity conferencing systems, like Zoom or GoToMeeting or or Skype. But the problem is that there's just not a dependency there, and really being able using those commodity technologies make it very difficult when you need to have what I would say professional broadcast quality, reliability, latency, all of those kinds of things. So for us, we had been working for some time in the bonded cellular space, as well as working with a application we call TVU Anywhere, which is an iPhone or Android-based application that allows you to connect via audio and video and be able to use all the cameras, whether it's the front-facing camera and the back-facing camera, as well as get return video in. So what we saw is almost a 500% jump overnight of the utilization of that app for people to be able to connect to their working infrastructure at a lot of news stations, because as long as they had TVU Grid and they had the receivers and they had the capability, those things were operational. They just didn't have anyone there to control them, and they couldn't get talent into the studio. So by being able to utilize TVU Anywhere, they could access their talent. It was ease of use was easy enough where any talent could take to the app and learn how to use it, and then they could immediately be on air. I mean, and you've seen the professionalism of these home studios progress over time. But a lot of this, when the lockdown first started, was just people in bedrooms with black behind them, just trying to get news and information out on air. And then a skeleton crew, maybe essentially at the facility, just trying to keep everything running.
Yeah, so I'm going to switch to Biju. Was it the same as far as y'all were concerned? I saw some programs being produced in Kerala using a Zoom. They had people at home. They produce even some entertainment programs like that, apart from news, I'm saying.
Yeah, I will tell you how we have managed the COVID using these remote technologies. See, actually, we have around. We were using these remote technologies earlier also. For example, if there is some guest from outside India, for example, consider United States or some other country, we normally use these applications like Skype, and we were also using Zoom earlier. Really, you would be aware of that Zoom is not being used regularly now because of some advisory from the Home Ministry of India. So, but still, as a case of usage, we were using these remote technologies earlier itself. In the COVID scenario, what we did is that we had different types of programs. For example, we had a program in the afternoon every day at around 2 o'clock, and it will run till 3 o'clock, where we started using the TVU Anywhere application, which we have in our hand. And using this TVU Anywhere application, we were able to connect with the, different musicians. For example, we had a situation where there are 5 important musicians from Kerala, singers, musicians, lyricists, etc., coming together and doing a show. That was a fantastic show, and it had great viewership in Kerala, for example. Another important case is that we have reporters. We had a lot of citizen reporters across the world. For example, people sitting at different locations of the world and then reporting what is happening in their city. Someone in Toronto, someone in in Paris, someone sitting in New York, and this happened like that. So actually, citizen reportership has also come up because of this, because we are able to install this TV Anywhere in their mobile, and then they can use it. Or we can use any remote application like Skype, Zoom, or anything like that, and then we are going forward. Actually, we were able to maintain our viewership in a level due to these things. Another important point I would like to make is that actually, as far as our production is concerned, we have taken 2 or 3 important steps so that our production is not getting affected in the long run. For example, if there is at least one COVID person in an office, then what normally happens is that the entire facility should be shut down as far as Kerala's COVID protocol is concerned. So we will not be able to run the show. So what we did is that we maintained a percentage of the people at the office. For example, if there are 30 people in a particular department, we asked 10 people to come to the office and the rest of the 20 to remain at home. So that we call it as no work, remain at home. Okay, and then we have people at the home. We have people in the office, so that there is a mix and match, so that even if somebody from this group is getting affected, we will be able to bring the other batch into office and do the job. It is a careful, calculated approach so that our production doesn't get affected. So that is one thing. So one of the things is that we had a no work remain at home policy, and we had 33% of the people coming to office. Number two, we use remote technologies like this so that we will be able to connect to all important people. For example, even the health minister of Kerala, Shaila, the teacher, she is very famous now. She connected with Madhurumi using this remote application, and we had conversation with her for more than 1 hour. We can tell like that. So we had audience coming in from the different parts of the state and talking with the minister and presenting the views and also asking questions and getting reply from her. So that there was a citizen-centric, we can call as a government-centric, we can call as a, media-centric, operations happening across the period that COVID has affected Kerala. So
well done, yeah. So great. I mean, that's great insights. Now, Ajit, you're with AsiaNet, right? You all did similar. You all use similar technologies too, right?
Yeah, exactly, sir. B sir already explained how deal with Kerala television industry runs. Now I'm working in a promo producer here, and I will tell you how we do promos in COVID time. Here, I done so many snippet and promos for television. I would like to mention here some of my experience. The most of difficult for me, the lockdown period, I cannot shooting in outdoors. That's the main problem I face. Everyone faces the same problem. Location is the great importance for shooting promos and snippet, everything. Everybody knows that. Instead of outdoor, we prefer indoor shoot also. It's not always good, I think. I guess the location is very, very important for the shooting. Then we called artists and we sent to script to them and also given drawing script also along with it, how to act, how look it, the turning left hand, right hand, everything written in script. But it sounds pretty good first, but I have no opinion on what this is perfect for all time. It's one thing that everybody learns how to handle camera this time, I think, exactly. We have a lot of good cameramen. It's a good thing. Then the second experiment was 2D animation. We are here using so many 2D type of animation, and that snippet and the same thing in promos we used in a 2D type of animation.
Fantastic. So great. I mean, we have Manish over here. So in terms of, you all were very busy in terms of coverage. So how did you all deal with this, and what did you all have in house? What were the challenges?
So good morning, everyone. In fact, my take is very simple on this. All these technologies have always been present, right? It's just that, the computer, but now since forced to kind of, evolve their workflows to suit these kinds of technologies. So I still remember that, we were the first client for these kinds of backpack technologies, and we were the first client for TVU as well in this country.
So was this the Inmarsat one? Was this Inmarsat, or was it, which backpack was this?
It was a TVU backpack, the first model that they had launched.
Fantastic.
TVU. So right from there only we had focused on, working remotely. If you see what is happening is that traditionally we have been used to sending a camera team with a camera and lights and an anchor reporter going there in the field and doing all those kinds of coverage. But I personally feel that, the bonded cellular technology is always a lifesaver during these trying times. So now reporters are all issued ENG cameras for news gathering, and currently half of them are using TVU backpacks to go live via their using their ENG cameras, and the other half of the station reporting staff as well as the anchors are also using these mobile app on their Android or iPhone. So you're right that we are very vast in terms of coverage. So what we have done is that most reporters have a secure Wi-Fi connection in their homes. So sending a video back to the station is relatively easy. And reporters are using these mobile apps on their phone or iPads to capture and send videos. So I would say that, these technologies, it's just how we use them. But these technology always enables, and they're there for us to make coverage easier. So in a way, what Biju has rightly said, that we have also kind of we have a program called Shikhar Sammelan. So it's a very high big property for our channel, and we invite a lot of politicians across for these kind of shows. So it's a panel discussion program which generally used to happen at the site. Now what we are doing is we are giving these applications to the guests on their phones, or we are giving them the backpack units, TM1000 or some other models, and we are taking it back into our studio, and there we are mixing and producing the entire show, and nobody can make out the difference that it is not being done from the location. So I think that is the catch. So this particular time when we are facing, I think this is the time when we can make best use of these kinds of technology, which has always been there with us from many years on. It's just that we have been using it.
Yeah. Okay, Devendra.
Hi, good morning to all.
Yeah, hi. So can you tell us your experience from your station, please?
Yeah, I mean, the situation we are running is definitely unique for our industry, and not only with our industry, with every industry of the world. So everyone, like Biju said and Manish said, that the technology exists, but this is the time we are using efficiently this technology. Like we are using Skype, and we are using this. So for as Manish said that for guest chat and all, we are using Skype and the app on backpack app. We're using those. Like we have a great show like Saheed. So for that, the guests were coming in our studio. But for this, in this situation, we're using the Skype or the app, DMNG app. We are using the backpack of AWS. So we are using the app of those. And for other things like for editorial, we have provided the Octopus system at their home by using VPN. So all these kind of mix and match, we are reducing the manpower at our office and using these technologies to for the production and all. And really, this is a difficult time for the news channels to come with a full-fledged production. So really tough to work this time. But this time, this situation tells us how to improve ourselves and optimize our working.
Great. So, Jared, you've had a chance to listen to. I'll also speak to Sirish and Anando. They're on the music side, and Sirish runs a general entertainment channel called Fuck Marathi. So you'll have absolutely had no productions going on, right? Though you were planning to get into production, Shirish and Anando, you'll have been doing a lot of productions in terms of your OTT platform, plus as well as doing a lot of mixes and matches in terms of your music channels. So how have you all been impacted? Then we'll head back to Jared. Shirish, would you like to begin?
Yeah. So for the general entertainment channels, it's been more of a repeat telecast, unless people who had some banking they could exploit with. We have seen this about 10 years back when the industry was in strike. So that was for a temporary period for about 2 weeks. But this time around 6 weeks is a longer duration. And this is the first time that we have experienced people where males and females are at home, and males are driven by not seeing more of the drama series, but are more skewed towards watching the movie segment that entertains them for a longer duration. And yes, news has played the top role, where consumption on news has gone aggressively high because people want to stay connected to understand what exactly is happening. While there were a few episodes where a lot of broadcasters tried tweaking and creating on a similar platform with the modern apps, where the artist shot from home and it was edited and mixed in such a way to make people feel that it is an episode. But for some reason, it didn't work, it didn't click, because it was more towards natural discussions and not towards the continuation of a storyboard.
I understand. So even we shot Ekta Kapoor and 5 or 6 of us producers, we shot that episode, a little short film for about 5.5 minutes, where we had about 35 actors filming from their home. We had a very good director, and we put that, stay safe film out for everyone. Yeah. So that's another thing we did. We directed it remotely.
That was brilliant. I think that is where people got ideas of how they can do it. So there were 1 or 2 classic examples of these multi-actors coming in saying, wash your hands and stay home, stay safe, and the song being created. So that is more of a better thing to be played with.
Fantastic. So Anando, in your case, in terms of your series that you'll turn out? I mean, was it production time right now, or was it not production time? Were you all on stages filming for your for television as well as for your own OTT platform? And what happened? How did you deal with that?
Things were bad. Things were bad really because television, okay, everything is kind of come to a standstill. Just like Shri said, like the one odd episode here and there, which people try to do, mix it and then put it on air, which I don't see people really talking great about those episodes because I mean, like it looks a little shoddy. So that is what, like, our challenge was to match up with the kind of production we normally do. News, in terms of news, is obviously different because it really doesn't matter how the visuals are looking and how what the quality of the video is, as long as the news is right and that kind of connects with people. In our case, it's not only the content; it's a mixture of the content and the location and the light and the color correction and the dubbing and every works. So for that, like doing a show from home, a show in sense like not a 5 minute film. Yeah, that is another thing. I also thought of talking about the film you just mentioned, the Amitabh Bachchan one. But the problem with the like that is it. Like that is a 5 minute film, which is still difficult to do, but then possible. But then it's only when you get into the zone of a 20 minute or a 30 minute or better than that, it's becoming almost impossible to do anything which is like worthwhile and worth watching. So that's a issue which we're having, and we didn't try because see now post this lockdown, like everybody's become a filmmaker in the sense like everybody's making films at home. Nothing against it, but everybody is doing it and uploading it. So if we do things like that, probably they would also look the same. So we being a professional platform, if we upload stuff which looks like any other video, which is like on Facebook now or YouTube now, that is probably something which is not good for a brand. That way. Having said that, we are still trying to do something, and here what we are really concentrating on is the content. Now, this is like in a lockdown production, the content is going to really drive things because now you create the content in such a way so that like what are the hurdles are and you create the content accordingly. Similarly, we have just created the content and we are in the shooting process. Yesterday we shot and today also we are shooting. So let's see what is the outcome of that. I don't know. We have just seen the footages, but post edit, what's going to happen? We are not sure. But probably at the end of the day, that is we are sincerely hoping that works. If that works, then probably we'll be able to make similar kind of content. I won't say great stuff, no, because it will be again very limited in terms of what content we are giving. So that's about it. So we are trying to do that, and we are trying to also like in our app trying to give a live TV. So a live TV in the sense like when you switch on the app, people will just watch some stuff going on, movies or so that is the whole thing. Like what we are doing is like we have a huge library of films, more than 200 films, and also a huge library of the stuff we have done for the past 2.5 years. So that's where we are a little lucky because I still know there are a lot of viewers who haven't seen those. So for them, repackaging those shows and putting them forward and asking people to watch them if they haven't watched them is the way we are surviving. That way, okay, things are working for us. But as far as new production are concerned, we are still trying to, but I really don't know whether this is going to work.
Fantastic. So now, Bhupen, can we hear you if you try again?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. So now it's over to you. So your entire way you're looking at producing news and producing your analysis and producing your feature programs, it's different. So can you share some of that with us?
Yeah, sure. No, my apologies. It was suddenly, and these are the. I know you didn't want us to use certain words right at the beginning, so I'm not going to use unpredictable or anything. But the vagaries of nature. Unprecedented, unpredictable. I'm not going to use those words, but just the vagaries of nature. I'm actually not in Delhi right now, where I'm usually based. I'm in the hills of Uttarakhand. And I took this decision of coming up to Uttarakhand because once the corona pandemic was getting where it was getting. But truth be told, Anil, I was attempting to show you something which I think will really be an interesting experience for all the panelists here. So this is my studio. I got a computer, I got a mobile stand, and I got an iPad, and this is all it. So in my 20 years of broadcasting journalism, where I would move with a team of 4 cameramen and lights and Obi-Wans and whatnot, over the last 1 month, I have been broadcasting from exactly this very place. I've interviewed the topmost newsmakers. I do a digital simulcast, which we're quite excited by, and we're trying to see what else can be done. I've really been overwhelmed by the feedback and the response which I've got on this. And it's a very simple thing that we do. Much like what you're attempting to do here right now, Zoom, when you're putting this out on Facebook Live. So what we do is, via restream, we put the broadcast all at the same time on Twitter, on Periscope, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and even on Instagram. So what that is allowing us to do is that it is, for the first time, I'm seeing that you can actually get into a two-way interactive kind of a broadcasting model. Look at the costing, which is associated with that. I'm on a home Wi-Fi. I'm on a home broadband, right? I take a Zoom Pro membership for around about $12, which is what in Indian currency, you look at it, you're talking about roughly $800, $850, which is, if you multiply it by 12, you're looking at, less than 10,000, around about $12,000 per annum. Now you compare that with the kind of money which mainstream TV stations have to spend to be distributed across the country. You're talking about upwards of 5 crores and 6 crores just to ensure that you're being seen.
That's about $1 million.
That's about $1 million. So I think what Corona has done is it has made all professionals, whether you're in content creation side or you're in content selling side, it's made everyone look at the world very differently. Why is it that you're seeing topmost publications today or topmost, and I say this, I say this with a certain degree of unease because one is from that fraternity, but it doesn't gladden me at all when I see that TV stations cannot afford to pay salaries, when I see that big newspapers are going in a scenario where they're saying that for the next 6 months, we will give you a certain reduced version of your salaries or your financial compensations. I think where it takes us is that it forces us to look at these kind of solutions that I'm talking about. I think the way ahead, and someone was talking about this, that we send backpacks and guests. Every big newsmaker in India today is available to you on your mobile phone. Every person is available to you either on Skype or on Zoom. As long as you have a good value-based proposition, I think that those days of sending an Obi-Wan, those days of sending a cameraman, sending an engineer, sending a backpack, I think those days are completely behind us. The other day I was interviewing Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, and I was asking her, I said, usually I send an Obi-Wan and there are 3 people who come and we set up a nice shot and we put up nice lights. And she was very clear. She says, look, boss, I don't want anybody to come into my space now because I don't know where that person is coming from. So I'm happy to speak to you, but I'll speak to you completely via my device. You figure a way out how you're going to broadcast my Skype link or my Zoom link. I'm going to be fine with it. I anticipate that you will well be in a scenario, Anil, where like APP, Manish was talking about it, the Shikhar Sammelan. I think digital Shikhar Sammelans or Zoom Shikhar Sammelans, exactly the kind of platforms that you're talking about, is the way forward. The challenge appears to be on the marketing side. I think as far as the editorial or content production is concerned, I see that there is near unanimity, there is near consensus. Before I left Network 18, which I've just done as of last month, for 2 weeks I was broadcasting from this very place. So my daily news show that I was doing on CNN News 18 Viewpoint, I would do exactly like this. We had a small Mojo kit, so it gets connected to the net. You have an app called LiveView Smart on your phone. Just download the app. You're connected to the net. As long as you have good internet connection, you can do exactly what you want to do anywhere across the country. So to my mind, I think anyone who thinks that we will be back to normal ways of broadcasting, conventional ways of broadcasting, I think that we're only living in an illusion. I think that era is completely gone. What you are doing, Anil, right now, I think is the future. The sooner content professionals, content makers like us, the sooner we adapt ourselves to these new realities, I think the better it will be for everyone.
Fantastic. So Sukanta, in terms of Orissa, you run a, it's a very powerful station in that region. But it's rather it's not a national station, but it's got a lot of cachet in the region that you're in. How have you all been dealing with it?
Basically, all the panelists have said that the remote and Skype and for getting guests, for getting videos from the field through backpacks, and we were not allowing our reporters to come into office. They are working in their residence and with the backpacks only. So, but for us, the most important part is the production for our entertainment channel. Okay, so that was actually the challenge for us. So, but we have got 4 entertainment channels in different genres. But we have seen that the consumption of movie, and we have got a Jatra channel. So that has gone more. So for our GC, we have done an innovative idea. So we have written a script and sent to all our artists so that they can shoot in their mobile according to the script. They sent us to us with in a WhatsApp or any biomedia, any Google Drive. So we combine them and have a very good show for 1.5 hours. So that
1.5 hours. Wow.
Yeah, every day. So that gave a very good rating and also involved all our artists and also our audience. So that was a really good, challenging and innovative content we have produced for our GC. So, and but only one challenge we have faced for our technical guys and news production guys who are coming to office to deal with the physical equipments. Suppose physical servers. So anyway, we have reduced our manpower. We have increased the man-hour by the people so that they can work for 12 hours, so that we can give rest to the other peoples. We worked in 50% manpower, so that we can have a reserve manpower in home, so that we can call them at any time, whenever we require. So in this way we have done, but now the time has come. So you must be aware of that. All the technology companies like IT sectors, now they are planning by 2025, they will have a 25% people working in office, 75% in their work from home. So to deal with this kind of situation. So, but for us, for our technology part, either in news production or for our physical servers and physical equipment, we have to think something about that, so that they can work from their home. Suppose we have got physical servers here, but they will access it, they will upload playlists, and they can copy the physical works. And for the editors also. So now this has come up with a very innovative situation, so that we have to think about something else about that. Our technology companies from different sectors, they can help us so that we can also plan. So in this kind of situations, our manpowers of productions and technology people can sit home and work there.
Fantastic. So that's great. That's where Jared comes in.
Yeah.
So we've got a few thousand people watching this live stream, Jared, and all of y'all. Thank you for being here. But Jared, now to this Sukanta's problem that he's faced, does TVO have a solution for that?
Yeah, I think that one of the mantras that we're operating under is that talent needs to be the new operator. And I completely agree with a lot of the sentiment that the days of having to roll trucks and to use physical technology to be able to make these connections are over. I think that we've seen a spike just in the development that we've done over the last few weeks, where we're really now able to bring all of those connections into a cloud-based production environment, that you can add graphics, that you can have intercom, that you can have feedback from your producer as if they were in the same room with you. We can handle all of the experience, as well as starting to use user-generated content and the same applications that you'd be using to broadcast on to bring a new level of interactivity. And so what I think is changing in all of this is that we used to do production. Now I think we're going to start to enter this new age called a social production age that allows more interactivity, and we can take the power of social networks and conferencing systems. We can add professional capabilities around them in the cloud. We can add all of the ability to take from the same studio where you sit now, but to add professional graphics to it, to add high-level audio, to be able to give you an operational interface that gives you real closed captioning or real teleprompting capabilities. So what the technology is catching up to the fact that we have great talent in their homes, and if we could just provide them the tools in a way that they were accustomed to, that were easy to use, they could take that production value and continue to increase it. And I think that solves or starts to solve the big problem when we talk about syndication. Well, now that everything's up in the cloud, you can send it to Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. But not only that, you can also start to personalize things to individual regions, to individual channels. And so once we have this in the cloud, the distribution mechanism, I think, is the other thing that we have to consider, because we have to find a way to make this monetizable. I think we have more people globally viewing news content and viewing entertainment content than they ever have been, but the CPM values and the advertising revenue associated with it is at an almost all-time low. And so we have to make sure that as we're producing and more content is proliferated, that we're actually able to take that content and put it into different workflows that can specialize that and personalize that, as well as target the advertising in a way that we can start to make up some of that monetary loss that we have from just companies that can't afford to broadcast in this time, or to pay for advertising in this time frame. So I think what you'll see is a more social production environment. You'll see the same technology you're using now, but done more in a professional manner, where we start to bring the features, the functionalities, the capabilities that you were used to at your studios and at your production facilities into the cloud. And then where you're able to also have intelligent workflows that allow you to syndicate that out at the individual or regional level, where you can start to get the highest monetary value and start to do different advertising strategies and really experiment with a new market. Because I agree with the sentiment of the panel that this isn't a new normal. I think things will be so far different than we ever experienced them in the past that it's going to take a lot of creativity about how we move forward. And I think you're seeing the technology now catch up as people have re-looked at the atmosphere that we're in and started to invest, like TVU Networks. And what we've done is really put a lot of the focus on making sure that we can create a social production engine and environment that gives everyone the tools that they're accustomed to in their facilities in the cloud, but makes it so easy to operate that the talent can be the operator, and then utilizing technologies like conferencing, but done in a professional way in the cloud that enable you to not have the same limitations of space, and to be able to have the same professionalism and access to your producing and directing staff as if they were in the room with you. So those are the fundamental elements that we're working on developing to make sure that as this continues, the technology that we're providing the market allows them to continuously up their game, and then also provides them different ways to start to monetize this content so we can make more and more revenue off of it in these situations.
And is it software as you use? Is it a SaaS kind of a solution?
Absolutely. It's all utilization based, all pay as you use, pay as you consume.
Okay. And then
which is the other new model, because the thing that we've also seen is that where a lot of people were hesitant prior to this pandemic to make purchases out of OpEx or SaaS, because especially publicly traded companies their financial profiles were all based on CapEx expenditures. You see companies that now have already taken that hit in the market because of the reduction in the economy that's happened, more and more willing to say, I need to hold on to as much cash as I can as a hedge. And so for my business decisions, I would rather pay a consumption model and test things out and figure them out than invest significantly into a 5-year amortization when I don't know what the future is going to look like that far out.
So how much would it cost me to have the TVU Anywhere app, and how much would it cost me to have the cloud solution? Let's say a Bhupen decides to shift to that, or let's say Manish decides to shift the network to that.
So the costing of TVU Anywhere in Producer is really on an hourly basis, or if you know you're going to be utilizing that more, you can save money. It really depends on the level of production that you need. and the abilities and features and functionalities that you need. But I mean, someone just getting started can do something like this for, you know, $20 to $50 an hour, no problem. But that's with all the syndication, all the graphics, all the capabilities that you need, as well as the ability to record all of that stuff and put it into the cloud so that you can re-air it, edit it, reproduce it later. So, you know, it's giving you the ability to do in the cloud what you would have done in your facility, and you only pay for the time that you use the service.
Great. What about for you know, producing stuff like drama series and, you know, talk shows and sports?
So we're doing a lot of we're having a lot of conversations with sports providers right now, and I think the biggest thing, and I don't know if you guys have seen any of the footage from some of the basketball games they've tried to do in Japan with empty stadiums.
Sure.
But it's really depressing to watch. You know, as someone who's a basketball fan, all you see is, you know, people playing and shoes squeaking on the ground, and I think that there's this sense of we really got to solve that problem. And so what we've been working on is being able to use this technology that exists in these stadiums, but being able to take user-generated content and start to pipe feedback, both video and audio feedback from fans that are receiving low latency streams back into the venue for the players and then out to the production, so that we can at least give some kind of social component back into this. Because I think the worst thing is you're all alone in your house because of a lockdown, watching a sports with no one else there. And I think that, you know, one of the things that we desperately need right now is that sense of community. And, you know, one of our goals is to use user-generated content technologies and use our distribution technologies in order to enable those kinds of connections, that fan experience, the ability to do shows like, you know, like these entertainment singing music shows, but be able to have fans listen in and cheer and be able to take that audio, that video back into the venue itself where they're shooting it, maybe at a reduced amount of people, but still be able to give both the performers and the audience a sense of connection, right? And I think that's what we're really, really hungry for right now when we're watching these productions.
Fantastic. You know, there are questions coming in. I'll come back to you all. There's a question from Saurabh Dubey. So me and my IT teams are doing research and development on Microsoft Remote, Desktop, Teradici, and TeamViewer, but it's not good enough for VFX and Edit. We are still searching the solution. Need help on this. Could you did you understand the question that he spit out?
Yeah, I understand. You know, from kind of remote desktoping and trying to be able to control the facility elements from your home. And I think there's always been problems all the way back to when we started to do, you know, play out, you know, store and forward play out models where we're using that. And I think that a lot of the difficulty is that you're still limited to your connectivity and there's just physics involved, but there's some things you can do in the cloud. So I'm not sure I have an answer specifically about what would be the best remote desktop software to utilize, because I think it's dependent on a lot of factors. But what I can say is when you can move everything into the cloud and you can manage the whole ecosystem, that connectivity environment, that interface to the operator or the talent actually can minimize a bunch of that latency and can reduce the issue you would have that would cause you to need to be able to remote desktop.
Yeah, but I was speaking to another animation studio. They're doing very well with Teradici, with as far as 3D animation was concerned, doing CG animation. I don't know. Anyone, Manish, you have an answer to him?
But that would make sense, but not as much as if you're doing a live production where you have that.
Sure.
Yeah. Understand for animation makes perfect sense.
Manish or Biju, you all have answers to him? Any solutions?
Yes. Yeah, I think, you know, the cloud, you know, most of the time we have been talking and we've been listening about cloud for many, many years now. So if we talk about remote editing and all these kinds of applications, the cloud is a kind of, you know, an offsite processing technology, which is still being experimented as of now. But, you know, there are issues which are still there with this cloud when you handle the content with this. So the challenge with the cloud processing is that even today, the ability to process everything for a live event is not possible there. So you can't actually switch a production in the cloud. You have to bring it down again to switch, which is expensive. So it's more of a, you know, as of now, cloud is more of a transport mechanism, which is there as of now. But I'm sure that, you know, while there are options to browse, edit, and do all those kinds of things on cloud and publish them on the central site, but the delays needs to be factored in along with the bandwidth constraints. So I think with time, this will get better. That's what.
Yeah. So, Jared, is that true? What he's saying, that it's more of a transport mechanism, and the bandwidth constraints make it so you've got to take it back off the cloud and then work on it, and then you're going to send it out. Is that true, or you found a solution around that?
I think it's really dependent on your workflow, but right now we can take end-to-end video into the cloud, whether it's from one of our packs or whether it's from one of our transceivers or whether it's from a user-generated content like app like TVU Anywhere, or whether it's from various different streams we get from websites or other handoff points. And we can take that into TVU Producer, and we can switch that real-time frame accurately, and we can send that out to all kinds of digital distribution, as well as directly back to a decoder so that you could take that SDI and deliver it to your tower or deliver it to your existing syndication point. So we're able to do all of that. I do think that when it comes to the amount of processing power you need to do that at scale, at like hundreds of inputs or hundreds of outputs, as well as, advanced like DVE or ME environments where you're doing a bunch of graphically intense stuff, there is still some limitations in cloud architecture that cause latency concerns. But if you're just talking about being able to take video up, use HTML5 graphics instead of some of the heavy graphics that you would use from a traditional graphics provider, and be able to take audio, video, and graphics and then ship those out, we can do all of that today, and do all of that today for broadcasters that are using TVU Producer and our services to deliver content. So we're doing a significant amount of that right now, but I do understand that there is limitations if you're talking about a apples to apples comparison about the way you do broadcast on the ground. But the interesting thing is that if you look at the pace of cloud compute and how quickly that it's opening up and scaling, and there's I don't want to get too technical on the call, but there's capabilities like RDMA with these virtual shared memory environments that will start to allow us to actually do way more in the cloud than we could have in traditional environments. And the cool thing about the cloud is if you want to, turn up a 3-input, little talk show that you're doing, you pay for that kind of compute. And then eventually, if you want to turn up a full end-to-end like sports broadcast, you only pay for what you're using. So it allows you to really be flexible and targeted. And it also allows what I think is really needed is that down market approach, which is now I want to go do high school or school level sports, and I want to be able to make that fit into my budget, or I want to be able to do a citizen journalist digital news channel that I run 24 hours, right? You can start to do that kind of experiments, because the most powerful thing about the cloud is this concept we call DevOps for content, which is the fact that the cloud is elastic and it's scalable, so you can use it, directly focused on your applicational needs. And I think that's what we need is we need to test things out, because none of us have like the decoder ring to understand exactly what it's going to take to win in the new world. But if you build out the right technology in the right way, which we do in a microservices oriented containerized fashion, which allows you to take each individual component of a solution. So like a player that was just a clip player inside of our production tools could also be a player for playout that you wanted to do for 24/7 playout. And any of the graphics capability can be extensible. And your audio capability, it's like Lego blocks. You can build whatever you need, and you can use the cloud to instantiate that and then take it down. And then you have the configuration saved so you can recall it every time you need to do it, but it's not always on. And so it's like our workflows up to this point have been fit for purpose, but now they can be elastic. And if you have the right tool set, we can start to provide broadcasters and engineers with all of the microservices, and they can combine those in interesting ways, and they can start to experiment and figure out, what the next best way of monetizing or producing a show or creating content is. And that, I think, is the big opportunity from all of this. But it does take a different way of looking at it, saying we're going to solve this problem and use the cloud for what the cloud is best at, as opposed to just trying to take what we do today and port that into the cloud.
Fantastic. So I see that in a lot of render farms which are coming up, which is different from news. So people are going into virtual render farms rather than having physical rendering happening of, especially in the animation side. So I understand the cloud's capabilities, yes, but Manish has a point that there are certain restrictions. How soon do you expect these restrictions to go away? How much time do you think? And, these things would get sorted out. And I'd like, other people also to give their views on this.
Yeah, and I would ask Manish, exactly what restrictions, because I think that scale is probably the biggest restriction right now, which is the amount of inputs, the amount of outputs, how much you can do in the cloud. But if you're just talking about a 4, 6, 8 input, production with graphics that you can ship out, that's very possible, and it's working today through a lot of different technological solutions, and certainly ours. But I think that the limitation for scale, especially with all of the push that you have now with COVID-19 and the cloud providers to really start to open up some of these higher bandwidth connectivities between virtual machines, I think we're probably 6 to 9 months away from a cloud-based production revolution, in the sense where you're going to start to see us be able to do some things in the cloud and other providers in the cloud that will wow and be comparative to things that we've done on premise. And because we can do them in a different way and we can process things differently, we'll open up even different ways of operations that we wouldn't have expected before. So I don't think it's that far away at all.
So while I kind of agree with what Jared has said, is that when it comes to production of the news content from the field, it's still doable and it's working very fine these days. The other aspect for a news channel, which I was referring, was on the side of the post-production. So if you see typically for a news channel, what is there is, there's a lot of graphics elements which goes into making a package. There are a lot of lower thirds, there are a lot of, Aston bands, and there are a lot of animations which is going to be there. So 70 to 80% of the video editors, they have to be on the location. On the location means on the office, for a simple reason, because when you ask them to do all those kinds of effects and editing on the cloud, where they have to access everything, every content which is getting into the production volume and accessing that volume on a cloud, putting those kinds of effects and then rendering it out and then pushing it back again into the production volume for the content to be on air. So those kinds of delays is something which still is a challenging front for them. So even today, I'm sure that people from the news industry will vouch that you can't make the editors sit at home and work from their home. They still have to come to the office if they need to produce some good quality editing packages.
But Manish, is good quality in terms of visual? We are watching Ramayan on Doordarshan it's good storytelling. So is good quality in terms of look very crucial in this time? And going forward, as you said, digital and television, there's going to be a blurring of lines. So I was talking to Jared, where actually a lot of professors are getting into 2.5 hour long discussions and academic discussions, and they're getting more viewers than television is getting, and this is on digital. So Jared, could you throw some light on that?
Well, I think if you see kind of the podcast, the podcast shows that are popping up, it's very interesting. Well, you'll see, very highly specialized conversations where you have an evolutionary biologist talking to a neuroscientist about, political and scientific topics, and they will, get 3, 4, 500,000 views on these kinds of conversations. So I think that it's the narrative and it's the content that, is now starting to be democratized in a way where people can find their niches and people can get into things that I think are greatly positive, that don't have to be just, talking heads yelling at each other for any kind of partisan purposes, but actually long form conversations where you can actually get into the details of things. And I'm very surprised about the demand for those kinds of conversations. At least,
which is what Bhupen is coming in, which is what Bhupen is doing also right now, digital. Yeah. Bhupen, yeah.
Yeah, I've been listening to what Jared has been saying with great fascination, because I do believe that this is where the future is really headed. And just on the point which was being made by Manish, I think that's where the problem, and that's an India-specific problem. You see, what is happening in India is that because of the existing business models, the truth is that by and large, there is this great unease. There is this great reluctance to try out anything new because we believe that this business model has been working for me. I'm going to work around largely this business model. This corona pandemic actually, it threatens that business model in its entirety. So if today, I was just doing a rough calculation, if Jared is telling me that for as little as say $20 to $30 an hour, if I'm getting end to end, a product which has graphics, which has edited stuff, it has music, it has everything, just imagine the kind of manpower I don't end up spending for. And if I haven't seen the product which comes out of TV, the networks, and I'm going to look at that, if it is giving me the kind of output which I am producing on the basis of 4 to 5 people, firstly, on the basis of physical infrastructure, secondly, why would I not be thinking in terms of doing that? The experiment that I have been doing on Talk to Bhupen, and I'd urge all of you to go on my YouTube channel and see that. It's a virtual simulcast that we do. And what do? We've tied up with the producer who's in Bombay. He makes nice graphics, nice placards. Because of my own personal brand equity, I can get hold of whoever I want to. People are speaking about data. I think the fundamental shift that has happened, and I think Jared was also talking about that, is that there will be greater premium on content. Whether it's Fox in America or certain networks here in India, the truth is that the sense of titillation, the sense of sensationalism had gotten the better of entire news models, certainly. I think in many ways this corona pandemic may well end up bringing the focus back on top quality content. It may once again bring the focus back on who's giving you more data, who's giving you information which is credible, who's giving you more information which is authentic. If that credible and authentic information is backed with the kind of technology that Jared is talking about, I think, Anil, that this conversation could very well end up being the trigger point for this new revolution that we seem to be talking about today.
Fantastic. So great. I mean, anyone else wants to put forth his points, anyone of you. Sukanta, Biju, Devendra, Anando, Shirish.
I would like to add something to this. Actually, the question that was made earlier was that how we will be moving forward in the future as far as this production system is concerned. TV is going to come up with a solution in the next 8 months or 9 months, which will be helping the comprehensive production of the newsroom. But I'm
going to interrupt 1 second. If you get your compression ratios right, won't it be easier to ship everything and transport things back again to the studio? If you get a compression right, rather than having heavy data, video. Just a question to you, Jared.
Well, and you don't, and so as much as you can put in the cloud, the easier the workflow gets. The problem with the cloud is the egress and the ingress, right? You want to avoid that, but most of the cloud providers are now giving direct access pipelines into the cloud that allow you to do stuff. But the key is you don't have to pull things up and down, right? You can look at just the data environment.
But in the Indian context, where they have 5 advertisers, they have Aston bands upon Aston bands, that's the challenge they face.
So
which is Aston bands, you have an advertiser's Aston band, you have another advertiser's Aston band, it keeps changing, different segments are being sponsored by somebody else. So that's the challenge. And bring that on the fly tends to be challenging on the cloud. That's what Manish was saying, if I'm correct.
Is that what you were saying? Or I thought you were saying that the actual ingress into the cloud, is that the actual video workflows are bringing it in and out of the cloud?
So I was referring to the production on the cloud, basically.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about, once you get it into the cloud, right, I can now, because I'm not limited by the amount of servers. Like you used to have to build a facility. You'd build a facility based on the worst case scenario, right, of inputs, outputs, compute that you needed. Now you don't have to do that. So now if you wanted derivatives that you sold to various different regions, you could spin up additional compute and do a derivative for one region, a derivative for one advertiser, and then you could make those almost unlimited, as much as you had the capability to sell that content or to differentiate that content. So I really think what we'll see happen in the cloud is that as we start to be able to utilize that compute at scale, the way that we can produce content and the way that we can monetize it will be way greater than what we can do today. And we'll only pay for the amount of stuff that we use when we use it. And you'll start to see the costs of getting things in and out of the cloud decrease. And you'll start to see very interesting ways of editing directly in the cloud and only sending data back and forth to your environments and mirroring environments in a way that allow you to be more cost efficient, but still almost completely operate out of the cloud.
Fantastic. So Biju, sorry for interrupting you. You can go ahead, Biju. Oh, Biju's gone off. Probably, yeah, we lost him. So anybody else wants to make a point? Devendra? Oh, Biju's back. You were saying something before I interrupted you, Biju. Sorry about that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was trying to make a point. My point is that in the case of a conventional news production scenario, we have three different facilities. I will tell you like that. We have video, we have audio, and then we have graphics. Okay. And as far as these things are concerned, these are independently concerned in a production control room or a program control room. And along with this, we have a, what you can say, an advertisement scenario, which we call normally as an MCR or something like that. So that we have a switching between these two, which should happen very fast. And in the case of a cloud scenario, it is not so easy till now. I don't know how much of development can come in the future, because instantaneous transfer of data, capturing back of data, usage of graphics, usage of video, combining video, audio, and graphics together, then the communication system for doing all these things should be intact. Then only we will be able to have a comprehensive system, whatever it may be, whether it is TVU or whether it is any facility. We require a scenario where, in the case of a, what you can say, in the case of a entertainment scenario, it's not a problem, because we are scheduling the things and we are doing it at a particular time. For example, we are saying that we have a program scheduled from 6 o'clock in the morning to 12 o'clock in the evening. We can do that. But in the case of a news scenario, which is constantly varying, which is dynamic, which is continuous communication, news flowing from across different bureaus across the world or the country, the speed, the transmission power, the facility available to bring all these together, and the communication between the people involved, this is a huge task. This is not a simple task. That I surely believe, because even in the case of a product, whatever it is, whether it is TVU or anything else, it is not easy to combine all these facilities so that we will be having an excellent scenario where time is the most important thing. We call it as nanoseconds. I'm saying that picoseconds, which is 10 raised to minus 12 seconds, is important, which is very, very, very important. So time is a factor, and any delay in the time will affect the job, whatever it may be. So that is a big job, because even we can tell, I'm jokingly telling you, probably you would have heard a famous book, The Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. So time is the most important thing, and whatever technology that is going to come up should bring something which can do at a lightning speed. You know that 3 into 10 raised to 8 meters per second is the speed of light. So there cannot be any delay, and if there is a delay, the viewers are going to go away. Even in a small second of delay, we'll switch the channel, you know that, which happens in the conventional channel system also. So time is the factor, and every designing should be based upon time. So whenever TVU designs something, they should understand that video, audio, graphics, communication, all these things should be able to be done in a fraction or a fraction or a fraction of a second. Then only we will be able to achieve a scenario where the conventional media operating people will move into a system where something like TVU can help us and bring back a system or a production where economy, time, and usage will become more important and more frequent.
Point taken, Peter.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that having that broadcast quality look and feel and reliability and dependency is critical. I would say where I think the benefit happens is in the cloud, when I can use shared memory. What I can now do is, instead of having to have something that has latency incurred at every single step because it's linearly moving through a broadcast chain, I can now put something in shared memory and have all the processes touching that frame at the exact same time. So now I can provide that frame out with more processing done on it almost instantaneously, way faster than I could going through an on-premise environment. And once we start to really tap into those ways of working and think more from a compound architecture of compute than a linear environment, you'll start to see that kind of broadcast grade performance come out of the cloud. I'm not saying we're there yet, but I'm saying with the right architecture and the right compute strategy, I think we can do better than we do on premise today, very soon into the future.
Fantastic. That's a very positive note. And, you know, in the meanwhile, until we get there, you can use the TVU Anywhere product that they have, the producer, for not such heavy intensive kind of work. Correct me if I'm wrong, Devendra and all of you all.
Yeah, I very much agree with Viju that in a new scenario, things are changed in a fraction of a second. So we need all things in sync. That there is MCR, PCR, and in a second fraction of a second things change. Like right now, there is a news of COVID-19 updates, and suddenly that says PM is going to a destination, so we need to shift on that. And after that thing, another thing happens. So syncing of department and syncing of thing is very much important, and the latency is the biggest factor, because once you lose the delayed updation of content, the viewer will switch to a different channel, so you lose your viewership. So this is very much important, that syncing of all thinking and the latency should be consideration in designing and all.
Fantastic. So, and Sukanta, any points from you? Sukanta, any points from you? Or Anando, any points from you? Because it's very good for, as Biju said, it's good for...
My content, my concern is not the technology, and ours is very different from news that way. But then I'm really concerned about the kind of content we are going to produce post this lockdown and post this corona. In the sense, like, suppose, like, for example, now I cannot have probably hundreds of junior artists in the set. So if I can't have, then I have to think of a content which will not have a wedding, which will not depict a football match probably, which will not depict this and that and that. So we probably at the end of the day restrict ourselves to a few actors only to create a...
Which is true, yeah.
I don't know. I'm just guessing.
No, it is true. IBF has submitted a document which has been submitted to Mr. Prakash Javadekar, and in Maharashtra, the Chief Minister is considering the proposal of the Indian Broadcasting Foundation to figure out when we could start. Right now, we are in the red zone. So it may take a little time, but we will have a lot of restrictions. There'll be sanitization chambers. There'll be a whole lot of restrictions coming in.
Exactly. So that is what I'm really concerned because...
Yeah, but what we're talking about... technological capability, you can actually do editing on the cloud with the TV product.
We can.
So, you're shooting on the field, and you can actually see it on the cloud. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jared. If you're filming a drama, Jared, are you there?
I'm listening. Yeah.
Yeah. So if he's filming on location, can they in the studio see that everything that's been filmed for let's say 2 hours before, and can they give their feedback immediately?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. Can you say that question one more time?
Yeah. So can they? Supposing he's a drama producer, so they're filming on stage on a set. Can they view it live? What's being filmed using the TV anywhere, or let's say 2 hours later?
Yes.
Give their feedback.
Live is dependent, but yeah, I mean, within a half a second, for sure. Yes.
Yeah, and they can give their feedback. They can do everything on the fly, on the cloud. Everything can be done, right?
And that's one of the things about social production that we're working on is that ability to use latency capabilities that we've done in broadcast, but build them in a way so they're at scale, almost like a conferencing system like we're using here, but broadcast grade, where you can have your producer and your talent and your people back at home that are working from an editing or editorial perspective, communicating in almost real time and able to collaborate in that way, right? So I think that the same tools we would use for distribution, we apply them a different way, we can use them for collaboration.
Fantastic. So I've got a question here from, what about viruses? So there's a client who's got a problem with, they couldn't handle live broadcasts because they had viruses.
Actually, in the case of virus, is a different thing. Actually, whatever be the case, virus is a common factor in all type of productions, whether it may be a news production, whether it be an internet-enabled technology. So we should have we should have a strong firewall-based, antivirus-based technology available in the case of a large sector. Otherwise, it's going to punish the system, because virus can come from anywhere. As long as internet is available, virus is a part of it. It's just like as human beings, virus is a part of our life. We can tell like that. We have medicines to solve it. Similar to that, if you have a strong production system, you definitely need an antivirus, firewall-based professional system to handle that. But in the case of a singular system or a singular scenario, it is not a problem. For example, this Zoom is also virus-prone sometimes. But in the case of a singular scenario, that is not so, problematic, because nobody is going to target us and attack it. But in the case of a channel, or in the case of a news production system, or in the case of an entertainment production system, that's very important. And there should be a strong antivirus, strong firewall system. That's important.
Thank you for that, Biju. Yeah, so Jared, you wanted to show us something? You wanted to share something with us? A presentation?
All right. So I think one of the critical images I wanted to really share with the team is, if you can see this right here, is that, you know, we're looking at our solutions as really a media factory, a content factory. It's a media supply chain, right? So we have a bunch of tools for live video acquisition and transmission, and whether that's a pack or whether that's a transceiver or whether that's a, you know, how any way you could capture professional video or TVU anywhere and bring that into the system. And then once we have that video in the system in the cloud, we're able to utilize the technologies that we built to do at-home cloud production and then distribute that out, all by using control and management. And one of the big things that we started with is we started with a data-driven approach. And we've talked a lot about content here today, but I actually, and this may be inflammatory, but I'm actually of the belief that data is actually king. It used to be content, but now the content that's properly in context is the most valuable content. And if you don't have the proper use of data, data is the thing that's going to allow us to start to personalize content, which is going to make that content the most valuable to each individual consumer.
Point taken.
So from a live video transmission perspective, obviously this is the TVU Anywhere app that we were talking about, that a lot of the team has used, and that we have just seen significant growth throughout throughout this COVID environment of people being able to really just pick this thing up, turn it on, connect to a producer, and start to bring high quality productions to air and syndication across all kinds of different points. And a couple of things, you can see where we've done a ton of at-home news production, utilizing our packs, utilizing TVU Anywhere. We've done a bunch of concerts, we've done a bunch of sporting events. A lot of top tier sports broadcasters are using this for the ability to have conversations about old games that they'll re-air. We've seen a bunch of utilization in esports. And so the cool thing about this technology is that it's as applicable to what you would do in a news workflow or a citizen journalist environment as it would be with what you wanted to do from an entertainment perspective, a podcast perspective, a houses of worship perspective, corporate communication. The demand for professional tools to be able to distribute content in a reliable way has really just been exceptional. And so, we can, talk through some of the stuff that we're doing from a at-home production standpoint. But you can see where, we're offering right now 20 free hours. Anyone who wants to sign up and kind of play with Producer, we're giving 20 free hours where you can just go to the TVU Network's website and click on Producer and start a free trial and be able to utilize it, test it out, play with it. Same thing with TVU Anywhere. We also have some solutions around time alignment. We call this TVU RPS, and what that enables you to do is bring feeds in, time align them, and make sure that everything is synchronized all the way into Producer. A lot of sporting organizations are using this for live sports and for very time-sensitive information. You want to have the best lock between all of your signals. And I think that, the last thing I'll say is that we're offering free services until the end of May for everyone to try these apps out, utilize them. I want to get them into as many people's hands as we can so that we can help facilitate delivering the needed narratives and messages and entertainment that we're trying to do our part when it comes to all the COVID-19 stuff that's going on. So that's the just generic presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you. Great. It's been fantastic chatting with you. Unless each of you want to say any last words. Manish, Devendra, Anando, Ajit. I've said my words. I think I've been really very educated by what all you shared and what Jared has shared. Any last words? I really
appreciate everyone's time. It was great meeting all of you, and I look forward to talking soon, and hopefully when travel opens up again, getting out there to see all you guys.
No, I just want to add my 2 cents of advice while we are discussing about delays. I think while TV products have been doing and delivering a great service, especially during this time, I wish we could still resolve the issue of IFB delays, because the audio delays are something which is, becomes an irritant at times when we are doing it for a remote production, because video delay you can live with, but when it comes to a guest live chat happening and there's an audio delay, it becomes a kind of disturbance to the viewers as well. So I hope that we get better with the technology to address these kinds of.
So Manish, we're right on the edge of releasing a new technology addition to TVU Anywhere and Producer specifically for that function. I'd love for you to send me your email and let's find a time and let me demonstrate that to you, because what we've done is we've taken a lot of the technologies that you can utilize for conferencing and really given that real-time bidirectional feedback that's incorporated into the production environment. I'd love for you to take a look at it. I think it may be very helpful for what you're describing.
Oh, that would be great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I have one point to add to this. See, I think the Indian media scenario is different from the world. For example, if you go to different countries, the media scenario, the news production, etc., is quite different. I think as far as our perspectives, our way of thinking, our multiple tags on the screen, etc., is quite different if you compare with the other channels. For example, if you take BBC or Al Jazeera or any such channels, you don't have that much amount of cluttering on the screen. We can call like that. So in the case of an Indian scenario, I would request that TV should actually go deep into the regional part of India, regional channels, etc., and talk with them so that you will understand what are the requirements in a regional scenario, which is very, very important, because considering a global perspective, you will be designing something, some equipment or some products. But if you go regionally into the Indian states, for example, we have 29 states in India, you go to different states or you select a region, for example, if you take a southern region, northern, eastern and western, so you will see quite different how we do a news. For example, you have a lot of small pop-up screens, additional tags, etc. on the screen. So these things should also be taken care of when we design something for an Indian media product. This is what I think.
Thank you for that feedback. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else or Devendra or anybody else? If everything's been said, I'd like to thank everyone, including Jared. Jared, I think you should be getting to bed. While you do look young, we all need to get at least 6 hours of sleep every day. Thank you. Thank you very much, and good night to you. And thank you all of you all for being wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.